project personally focused on VAT fraud in the EU, which is a widespread phenomenon negatively affecting significant resources for the EU.
So for example, if you're testing accounts receivable, you'll need a listing of all the invoices due to the client. You should tie this to the total amount of accounts receivable probably sitting in the trial balance that
I'd like you to do is grab your cell phone or your iPad or your computer and go to your Wi-Fi settings. Do it now.
I've also invested in this project. We are very fortunate today to have as well for the introduction.
You remember that this equation balances always, always, always. Now let's say I come up with this amazing idea for a business. I want to make popcorn and sell it.
In international finance, some loopholes are so remarkably simple that they bypass even the most rigorous audits. By duplicating paper trails, crime syndicates move billions across borders undetected. While legitimate businesses need invoices to justify operational costs, organized crime syndicates use them to create a veneer of professional legitimacy for illicit cash. These standard documents act as the perfect mask for moving money.
Business transaction involves two parties, a buyer and a seller. The seller provides goods or services to the buyer, and in return, they want to get paid. This is a transaction, so that's the whole point. So the buyer owes money to the seller. But how much exactly? And what specifically are they paying for? And how long do they have to make the payment? To answer all of these questions, the seller sends them an invoice which sets out all of this information. So the buyer knows what they owe. They've got an itemized.
The beauty of the fraud lies in its predictability. By mimicking standard business language, they ensure no red flags are raised. As European audits shifted toward remote digital verification, they began prioritizing folder structure over physical proof. This creates a critical blind spot where digital records exist, but the physical goods they describe never actually move.
Being remotely audited is a bit lack of control on some sides, so it was very hard to discuss if that's correct or if that's a good idea or not. So yeah, I'm actually not very, I'm not surprised about that kind of results.
Okay. Because mainly, as we said, so accepted for all would mean also that this is something that there is no kind of restriction, so everybody.
If an auditor never checks the warehouse, they'll never see that the cargo is completely phantom. Modern auditing is an exercise in objectivity, focusing on whether documentation matches the ledger. If the Excel files are formatted correctly and the purchase orders align, the system considers the task complete.
Obviously, as an accountant, you'll be juggling many tasks and many different files of different formats, like Excel files, PDF files, also working with an accounting software as well. So you need to be somebody who's detail-oriented in order to be a good accountant. The second thing you should be mentioning is being objective. So objective is a great thing to have as an accountant because objectivity means that you're basing your opinion.
It's not about finding the truth, it's about satisfying a checklist, which is exactly what these criminal accountants are built to do. During peak auditing season, junior staff are often asked with reviewing low-risk accounts. Because they follow rigid, pre-testing guides, they rarely spot the structural anomalies hidden in the data.
So for example, if you're testing accounts receivable, you'll need a listing of all the invoices due to the client. You should tie this to the total amount of accounts receivable probably sitting in the trial balance that they would have given you or the team earlier on in the audit. And then once you've sampled the invoice listing, you'll have to ask them for invoices and you'll have to ask why certain ones haven't been paid if it's been kind of a long time since they sent the invoice out.
By feeding the least experienced team members the most complex mirrored files, the fraudsters guarantee their work remains unquestioned. The evolution of this fraud relied on automated procurement routines that reconcile data between shell companies in real time. This ensures that when an auditor checks the ledger, the balances appear perfectly consistent.
And you're going to sound like you just memorized a bunch of words before the interview. It's much better to sound natural, even with some words that you improvise and come up with. So rehearse it, just don't memorize it before the job interview. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the example that I would give as an accounting manager. Throughout my career, I worked on numerous system implementations to facilitate the efficiency of information sharing between systems.
True automation doesn't just speed up business in the wrong hands. It automates the creation of a perfect lie. Even when firms utilize advanced data analytics to spot irregularities, the scheme remains undetected because the transactions mimic industry standard market patterns. If the numbers look normal, the algorithm sees no reason to flag them.
Audit data analytics, similar to almost all other data analytics, is the art and science of finding patterns within your data. Within the audit space, that typically means looking for inconsistencies and differences in trends within a particular subset of the data compared to what is the norm for the rest of the data.
If your fake transaction looks like every other legitimate trade, the machine will defend it as truth. Double invoicing is a primary vehicle for tax fraud, allowing syndicates to claim massive refunds on transactions that never physically occurred. This creates a parasitic drain on public treasuries across Europe.
Project firstly focused on VAT fraud in the EU, which is a widespread phenomenon negatively affecting significant resources for the EU and its member states. These frauds are blows to the heart of the EU's financial interests and sustainable development within the 27 member states. These pose relevant questions about need to foster common policies, investigations and cooperation in the full respect of fundamental rights. Many responses have been.
It is essentially a high-stakes carousel, spinning tax money out of the public domain and directly into private criminal pockets. Europe's fragmented regulatory landscape provides the perfect environment for these schemes. Because different jurisdictions struggle to communicate or sync tax records instantaneously, laundering networks exploit these gaps to remain mobile.
Couple of years, I've never experienced change like the way I'm experiencing now, and probably will in the next few years. My talk is about professional accounting challenges in the EU. And there are many, many challenges. Europe has many challenges.
Policy debates about sovereignty are exactly what allow these accountants to hide in the cracks between nations. Current audit frameworks are structurally designed to validate the legality of documents rather than the reality of the underlying trade. When the system trusts the paperwork blindly, it inevitably fails to detect the fraud.
And financial accountability are very deeply rooted in the broader concept of democratic accountability. The creation of the court through the Treaty of Brussels in the 70s of the last century shows this convergence between the requirement of independent external audits and the goal of full democratic accountability.
A framework that prioritizes formal legality over tangible proof will always be outmaneuvered by a well-manufactured lie. Criminal syndicates recruit former firm accountants precisely because they know exactly which audit thresholds, sampling methods, and testing scopes to avoid. This insider knowledge turns a dangerous gamble into a safe, routine procedure.
So when I started working, I just had so much of self-doubt and imposter syndrome that I didn't belong in this amazing organization amongst these pool of people who were so smart, so intelligent. I constantly thought that they were smarter than me. And because of that, I shut myself down. I didn't speak up much in team meetings. I thought that I'll just put my head down and keep working, keep doing the hard work. Whereas I wish I could go back and hug my younger self and tell her that it's completely okay to start from scratch.
Hiring the people who built the system is the ultimate way to learn how to break it from the inside out. Internal audits are intended to verify that security protocols are followed, but they are toothless when the underlying data is already fabricated. If the trail is consistent with the policy, the internal reviewer sees a clean company.
Systematically actually go through each and every requirement, not only of the standard, but also of your internal documentation to verify these things. And internal audit needs to be performed by an internal auditor, and this is a person who is independent from managing security. And a little bit later on, I'll explain what are the qualifications and who can be the internal auditor.
It's a perfect neutralization. The very rules meant to protect the company are used to validate the fraud. By preparing perfectly matching transaction folders before an audit even begins, syndicates ensure that investigators find zero deviations. It turns a high-pressure inspection into an easy exercise in box ticking.
Generally, there were only 9 findings and 1 observation. fined by the auditors from IMO delegation. On average, if we look to the European countries, usually the figure is about 22.
So 22 findings.
Exactly,
okay.
yes.
So they do have kind of some recommendation after the audit result are being published.
When you give auditors exactly what they expect to see, they stop looking for what they should be seeing. Laundering accounts use consolidated financial reports to project credibility, embedding illicit assets within legitimate corporate holdings. Once these reports earn an audit sign-off, the dirty money is effectively laundered.
Including a lot of people that Arthur mentioned in his speech. I think the accounts actually are for a lot of stakeholders, to start with investors, regulators, bankers, creditors, debtors, who are all doing business with the reporting entity. So, in a nutshell,
the audit seal is the final stamp of approval that grants these criminal enterprises a total veneer of respectability. Criminal accountants specifically target underfunded tax administrations where tracking systems are slow or incomplete. By establishing their initial nodes in these regions, they minimize their early footprint.
The capacity of the internal security forces in Niger and Mali, only limited and slow progress. So the audit work was carried out from May 2017 to September 2017. On the picture you can see Niger and Mali. Niger and Mali are very fragile states in Western Africa, very poor countries, young parliamentary democracies, weak economies, and developing public administrations.
They don't look for the biggest market, they look for the weakest link where their activity will blend into the background noise. Public bodies often focus on budget regularity and compliance targets rather than verifying physical assets. This allows phantom business transactions to remain unchallenged as long as the math adds up.
And responsibilities in the objectives and targets to be achieved, the payment conditions for receiving funds, requirements for recording, checking and reporting on the results, external audit mandates, and arrangements for political oversight. All these components need to be in place and working.
If you don't verify what the company actually possesses, you'll never realize that their most valuable assets are completely non-existent. Double-entry bookkeeping is the foundation of trust in commerce. Because accounting systems prioritize balanced debits and credits, a phantom trade that balances across mirrored ledgers is immediately accepted as fact.
It actually helped to establish the principles of accounting, particularly around debits and credits. Many people have said that it's because of these principles that trade, commerce continued to develop. So maybe let me give you an example. Why are these principles so important? Say you are an investor.
The system is designed to trust the math, and these accountants have mastered the art of balancing a lie until it looks like truth. Progressive sustainability reporting is being used as a modern diversion to project a respectable image. By appearing eco-conscious, companies shift regulatory scrutiny away from their actual, highly suspicious transaction volumes.
Have also invested in this project. We are very fortunate today to have as well for the introduction Patrick de Cambua, who is the chairman of this task force. We have been working intensely over the last period of time since September to try to...
It's an ingenious psychological trick people rarely suspect a green company of being a criminal front. When audit models rely on rigid, standardized rules, they become predictable. Experienced accountants know the scripts by heart and can easily structure transactions to fall comfortably within these safe loops.
Audit, what's going on with this thing? Or you send in some technicians to say, okay, what are the technical specifications of the algorithm? But doing an algorithmic audit that's supposed to protect society at large, that was just confusing to me. Luckily, Ryan Carrier is on the case. Ryan is the founder of For Humanity, a nonprofit that is meant to create and support the algorithmic auditing community.
If the audit process is a predictable game, the people who wrote the rules are always going to win. While regulatory committees spend years debating theoretical reforms, criminal networks are already several steps ahead. By the time a new policy is implemented, they have already moved to the next version of the loophole.
which has stimulated extensive discussion, extensive thought. And what it has done is make the profession look at itself and see whether it is fit for purpose in today's and tomorrow's world as opposed to the past. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing the Commissioner's thoughts and hopefully progress.
Legislation is inherently reactive, which is the perfect environment for a proactive criminal operation to thrive. Tight audit schedules frequently force teams to rely on standardized checklists rather than their own professional judgment. This systematic pressure ensures that even the most obvious red flags are often overlooked in the rush to finish.
Seize the opportunities technology brings and that we refocus our work on what delivers most value to society. And I believe that is professional judgment and value-based leadership. Mr. Morieux, you convinced me that the profession has to be an agent of change.
When you prioritize speed and efficiency, you inadvertently create a massive opening for anyone smart enough to follow your checklist. Regulatory reviews can take months to conclude, providing syndicates with more than enough time to integrate their laundered capital. This procedural delay is effectively a grace period for criminal movement.
The comprehensive assessment. The third was to create from scratch a new institution, the SSM. And the fourth was organize the transfer to the new premises, to the new building. All this, of course, was done with an amazing collaboration. I was just discussing this with Madam Koenig before. An amazing collaboration.
Every day the regulators spend processing paperwork as another day, the syndicate secures their illicit gains into the economy. Advanced digital tools are often outed as the solution to audit fraud, but they only analyze the data provided. If the source data is expertly mirrored, the software will validate the fraud every single time.
What I'd like you to do is grab your cell phone or your iPad or your computer and go to your Wi-Fi settings. Do it now. And when you're there, select the network with the name Buzzmaster. And when you're online, open your browser and go to Buzzmaster.
No software in the world can detect a lie that is perfectly coded into the baseline ledger data. Regulators often underestimate how quickly criminal networks adapt to new guidelines. This chronic legislative delay keeps standard verification frameworks perpetually behind, ensuring criminals always have the home field advantage.
You envision the future of the audit and our profession. As the title indicates, we are talking here about the future, about the challenges that lie ahead both in the short term, which means the audit reform, and the long term. That means the real needs of users throughout the 20.
If your defense strategy is months behind the offense, you've already lost the game before it starts. The most sophisticated laundering schemes use automated shell companies to simulate standard business cycles. By constantly generating and reconciling these phantom trades, they appear to be highly active commercial enterprises.
16, our company was 14 years old already for business in Ukraine. It is a good age, teenager, complicated age. And let's represent the development of our company as a life cycle. I hope many of you know what is life cycle, and we had a feeling that we were on the maturity stage because we passed already the stage of startup, some kind of growth.
The level of organizational depth required to maintain this phantom commerce is what makes it so incredibly effective. The ultimate goal is to secure an independent audit sign-off which acts as a legal shield. Once the compliance report is finalized, the syndicate's transactions are effectively beyond the reach of most law enforcement scrutiny.
The civil liberties. Thank you all for being with us. Let's start things off here in the studio with Charlene and with Victor. AI, Europe. Can the two work together? Charlene, Can
AI
and
in
can it
Europe.
all work together, do you think? Or do you think it's going to come to what the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, is warning about, saying that if the EU is too strict, I'll take my ball.
An audit sign-off isn't just a document, it's a powerful, government-endorsed cloak of immunity for dirty money. The daily work of a laundering accountant is mundane and intentionally identical to legitimate corporate accounting. They reconcile accounts and balance ledgers with precision, ensuring the fake trail remains perfectly camouflaged.
In addition, a tax accountant advises the company's management regarding the impact of tax on corporate strategies, including preparing tax provision schedules, maintaining compliance with government and state regulations, recommending tax strategies for state, federal and local taxation, etc. 3. What are the qualities that a tax accountant needs to be successful?
The greatest cover for a massive fraud is the boring, everyday routine of standard accounting. During walk-through audits, professionals trace transactions from origin to ledger. Because the entire cycle is fabricated with matching invoices and orders, the test actually validates the fake process rather than uncovering it.
Pretty intense. So we are starting walkthroughs with our external auditors, basically going from like the very beginning of a cycle, such as like, you know, hiring someone new, all the way through to how that gets into the general ledger and financial statements, and then identifying, you know, where the risks are in that process.
The process is perfectly designed to prove exactly what the fraudster wants the auditor to believe, by using legitimate public registrations and real corporate filings. Launderers create a foundation of authenticity that most auditors never bother to question. It provides the crucial layer of legality needed to operate freely.
NPCC guidance, it is titled Auditors, Social Media Bloggers, Initial Guidance. Now, from my reading, the fact that it says initial guidance suggests that they had to get something out relatively quickly so that each force is acting in a consistent manner when responding to auditors or social media vloggers. Right out of the gate at point 1 of the document, the NPCC shows that it understands what the current issue is, and it reads as follows.
There is nothing more effective than using the public system itself to provide cover for your criminal activity. Because the statement of cash flows is the first place auditors look, we ensure every mirrored invoice matches an actual bank transaction. This coordination allows the double invoice loop to pass even the most rigorous scrutiny.
If you look at the statement of cash flows, it really has all the information you need because it begins with net income, and then it goes on to detail cash from operating activities, and then it goes on to the section of cash from investing activities, and then cash from financing activities. So you can tell the P&L by looking at the net income right on top.
When your paper trail and bank records are in perfect harmony, the audit effectively turns into a rubber stamp exercise. The fundamental accounting equation is the ultimate tool for a laundering accountant. As long as assets, liabilities, and equity remain balanced, the double entry system treats the mirrored trail as fact.
You remember that this equation balances always, always, always. Now let's say I come up with this amazing idea for a business. I want to make popcorn and sell it. I've got $5 in my pocket and I decide to lend it to the business. Now there is a word to describe the stuff that the business owns, and that is called assets. On the other side of the accounting equation, we actually have 2 different words to describe what the business owes, and that depends on who the lender is. We use liabilities to describe what the business owes to third parties.
The beauty of accounting is that it demands order. The trick is ensuring that the order you present is entirely built on a lie. Bypassing audits is not about complex hacking, it is about exploiting human trust and balanced paperwork.